They told us that no one knows the day or the hour, but they didn't tell us this. Pay attention. In the book of Hebrews, the writer says something about the last days that we all need to understand. Let's start with verse 1. It says here, God, who at sundry times or various times and in diverse manners spoke in times past unto the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. So, in other words, God spoke to the Israelites of the Old Testament, the fathers of the Jewish people, by the prophets. And he did this in different types of ways. But then he says, in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, in which we know to be Jesus Christ. Now, what's interesting about this statement is that the writer of Hebrews says that God in these last days has spoken to us by his Son. And by him saying this, he's classifying the time that he writes this as the last days. And when was the book of Hebrews written? 2,000 years ago. And this reveals that the ministry of Jesus marks the last days. In order to understand this, let's use the movie analogy. The first hour would be the beginning of the movie. The second hour would be the middle of the movie. And the third hour would be the end of the movie. In the same way, this is how God views the timeline of humanity. And Jesus' ministry marks the beginning of the last days. So Jesus begins his earthly ministry around 27 AD. And so that means from that point all the way to the current year of 2026 has been 2,000 years that we've been living in the last days. So what's been going on for the last 2,000 years? Matthew 24, verse 7 tells us, for nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines, pestilence, earthquakes in various places. All of these are the beginning of sorrows. Mark 13 gives the same discourse. Starting with verse 8, he says, for nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There shall be earthquakes in various places. There shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginning of sorrows. And finally, in Luke 21, Luke gives his account. Starting with verse 10, he said, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in various places, and famines and pestilence, which is disease. Fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. But before all of these, they shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers, for my name's sake. And no one can deny that Christian persecution, along with the remaining events of the beginning of sorrows, have been going on for the last 2,000 years. Now, seeing that we've been in the beginning of sorrows for the last 2,000 years, we're moving past that. And the only thing that's left is the end. And when it comes to the last days, the end is the final segment of the timeline of the last days. See, the beginning of sorrows are also known to be called birth pangs. And what birth pangs are the intensifying contractions that will lead to the birth of a new age. And that age is the everlasting kingdom of Jesus Christ, which begins with the millennial reign on this earth. And so these contractions will continue to intensify until the time of the end. And the time of the end is known to be the final 7 years of this age. And the latter half of that 7 years, which is 3.5 years, is known to be the time of the Great Tribulation. And this 3.5 years is also known to be the 42-month reign of the Antichrist. Revelation 13 speaks of the beast, which is the empire of the Antichrist. And look what it has to say in verse 5. And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And this leads me to my next point, which is a famous verse right here in Mark 13, verse 32. And Jesus says, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father." Now, when many of us have read this verse, we've taken it completely out of context, as if it means that we're going to be completely blindsided as to when Jesus returns. But look at what Mark says right above that. He says in verse 28, "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So in like manner, when you shall see all these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors." And so what Jesus is illustrating is that just as you know that when a tender branch puts forth her leaves, it's an indication that summer is near. And so in like manner, when we see all of these things come to pass, we will know that the end is near, even at the doors. See, we know when Jesus is going to be at the door. We just don't know the day or the hour that he's going to open it. And seeing that these signs have already been taking place for the last 2,000 years, we now need to look into the signs that lead to the final 7 years.